she showed up with a meat cleaver. She was cutting up meat in the kitchen. She came with it to the table. And my recruiter looks at me and he goes, "Do I got to be worried?" I said, "I got you, dude. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of mom." But it was like, they were both very, very upset with me. They were both very disappointed. All my uncles, aunts, cousins, everybody tried talking me out of it, except my grandfather on my mom's side. He had been one of the guys, I would swear to God, if he had been younger, he would have been part of the Mujahideen, you know? And he's like, "Halima, just do you. Don't worry about everybody else. Everything else will fall into place or it won't." He's like, "Just take care of you. This life, you being a devoted wife in some arranged marriage, isn't for you."
Welcome to the Transition Drill Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Pantiani. I appreciate you taking the time to watch. So let's get into this. I wanted to sit down and talk to you, obviously, as we discussed, the spouse's perspective in somebody dealing with PTSD or trauma and that type stuff. For those who are listening, I interviewed your husband. He's episode 31, Rob Blanton. But then I read your backstory. And your backstory is a lot more interesting. I want to get into what we originally discussed. But for those listening, where were you born?
I was born in Kabul, Afghanistan.
And you had to leave under some trying circumstances.
We left because of the Russian invasion. Mm-hmm.
You were 5 at the time, correct?
I was, yeah. I was 5. I can remember like literally leaving in the middle of the night with nothing because there were so many different checkpoints that would stop people. And if you had anything, they would turn you around and take everything. So then you'd go back home with nothing. But literally we left with nothing but the clothes on our back and whatever jewelry my mom could smuggle.
Trying to think back to when you were 5. Do you remember it building up, or was it all of a sudden just, "Hey, we got to go"?
I didn't even realize anything was going on. I mean, you heard stories because one of my uncles came up missing. But as a 5-year-old, you don't think about stuff like that, you know? So I overheard that he was missing, and it's like, what happened, you know? Oh, he probably went off somewhere. No, he was taken somewhere. But once that started happening, once you started seeing more and more, especially the younger men being conscripted, being, taken, my parents decided it was time for us to leave.
As when you guys were leaving, what did your mom and dad do? What was their profession?
My mom was a teacher. So she taught the younger, like elementary school areas. And then my dad was an engineer. So
pretty well-respected
Yes.
professions.
Yes.
In hindsight, did that help them or hurt them in trying to get out of the country, do you think?
That only helped them because there were so many other people that didn't have that. They didn't have that outside experience where my dad had gone to university in the U.S. He had been a foreign exchange student. He spoke English. A lot of the other locals did not, so they didn't have, I guess, an avenue to leave from. So there's still people stuck there thinking, "Oh, it's going to get better. It's going to get better."
No,
it's not.
You ended up in an internment camp. Would that be a loose definition of it?
A loose definition, yeah, most definitely.
Still in Afghanistan or across the border?
Across the border in Pakistan. So we evaded, I don't know how many different checkpoints where we would literally hide the vehicles, hide the people in sand dunes, and then get back on the trail that we could find. You can't travel the main roads, what main roads there are. So whatever way we could, there were so many different people doing the same thing. But we got caught at a station, and it wasn't a station that was normally set up. They had set it up knowing people were coming in through that avenue. So they caught a bunch of us and then took us all out. And my dad and one of my uncles, they were the two that managed to escape and evade, and then slowly but surely brought us all out of the camp.
Now, for you, it was you, your mom, any brothers or sisters?
Yes, a brother and sister. And then we had, I think 4 different aunts and uncles and their families. One aunt and like her 4 sons, because her husband was one of the guys that was missing. So yeah, there was quite a few. There was quite a few of us, and we all went together as a family. And then we made it out of the camp and into actual Pakistan. You know,
what was that process like? How long did it take to get out of the camp? Do you remember?
Months.
Okay, so
months.
Even as a 5-year-old, you realized that it was a long time.
Oh yeah, because there were so many days that we would be starving because there wasn't enough food. This camp wasn't meant to hold thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and yet it did. And so there was plenty of days where there wouldn't be enough food, there wouldn't be enough water, and definitely not enough facilities for anything, you know? So I'm going hungry like that, you tend not to forget.
Most definitely. Deciding to come to the United States, again, I'm asking you as a 5-year-old at that time, but did you know, or do you know, was that your parents' primary goal, or were they thinking somewhere else in California, or the U.S. just ended up being where they ended up?
Well, as we're going through the different areas, trying to find the embassies for different countries, we passed by the U.S. one, and I literally told my dad, I'm like, that's the shortest line. Let's get in there. And he's like, Halima, it's short for a reason, you know? Nobody gets out of here on that avenue. You know, we have relatives that live in Germany. We have relatives that live in Canada. We have quite a few relatives that live in the U.S. So we're scattered all over the place now.
From that
initial.
Not at that time. At that time, did you still already have those family connections at different parts? We
did. No. Okay. No, but people got in different lines.
Right.
Like literally all of us couldn't get in one line. They wouldn't pass everybody. So like one of my uncles.
Was it kind of like your family drew the short straw? Like,
No.
The U.S.?
We drew the best straw. So one of my uncles had 2 wives. How do you travel with 2 wives to the U.S.? You know, religion, you can state it, but most people back then.
Not going to accept it.
Early, late 79, 80, they're not going to accept it. So what do you do? Oh, he got in one line with one wife and then in another line with another wife, And, I even heard of one of our friends had 2 wives. One was his wife, one was his sister. Okay, there you go. So
hey, there's a TV show about that now. They were just ahead of their time. Very
ahead of their time.
Coming to the United States, California was your first stop?
Yes, we landed in LAX and then I don't think we had enough energy, definitely not enough funding to go anywhere else. So I was raised mostly in Inglewood. I mean, we could hear the planes from LAX constantly, because we were so close to the airport. That's how far we made it.
And that was 1979?
1980.
1980.
Because we went to Iran, tried to go there, see if we could live there. It didn't work out, went back to Pakistan, and then from Pakistan, made it to the U.S.
So now you're a young child in Inglewood, California.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
Talk about
culture
fish,
shock.
Talk about a fish out of water. There was 2 very big ethnic groups in Inglewood. One was Hispanic, one was African American. I didn't fit in either
one.
And especially considering the fact that like my mom made our clothes. Every chance she got that she could save a few pennies, she would. And at the time, she didn't know about stores like Ross, Marshalls, TJ Maxx, and their clearance aisles, So she would buy bolts of cloth and make our clothes for us.
I'm sure you looked very stylish and fashionable.
And hand-me-down shoes, right? It was It was an enlightening experience. And you learned very quickly to be nice to other people because God knows they're not going to be nice to you.
Was it just you, your brothers and sisters, your mom and dad that settled, or any other family members settle in the immediate area?
We settled in Inglewood. We had another family, aunts and uncles, that settled in Inglewood. We had an aunt and uncle that settled in like West Covina. We had an aunt and uncle that with my grandparents that settled in Santa Ana. So some of us went a little bit further than LAX, and then we were the ones closest.
Yeah, because for those who have not been to California or not familiar with Southern California, Inglewood is, you literally almost stepped outside the airport and found a place to live.
Yes.
Whereas West Covina, Santa Ana, you're talking even without traffic, 45 to an hour drive.
So my dad went from being an engineer, being a very well-respected man in Afghanistan, to coming to the U.S., not having his credentials, not being recognized as an engineer here. So he became a parking lot attendant.
Even though he went to college in the U.S.?
Even though he went to college, but he didn't finish college.
Oh, okay.
So that's why. But the problem was, what do you do now? You still have to provide for a wife and 3 children. And then less than 5 years later, my mom got pregnant. And even though her tubes were tied in Afghanistan, she got pregnant with twins.
Oh.
So now.
Welcome to California.
The 5 of us lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. And then the 7 of us lived in a 1-bedroom apartment while they saved money, every single penny they could, to buy a house, to have a down payment for a house. So the 7 of us shared 1 bathroom.
Wow.
But I remember growing up, and Inglewood was fun.
Your poor dad didn't take a magazine into the bathroom, did he?
No, he couldn't even lock the door. Poor guy.
Close the door. There's a clock that starts ticking down.
But like when I would take a shower, I would have to wash my brother and sister with me. It's like, okay, let's go. Not only are we saving water, but let's get it all done. But I remember like during the summers, my cousins and I was like one of the few female amongst like 14 male cousins. That's how it felt. But I was the only female, and we would all get together, ride, walk, whatever, to LAX because it was so close. And we all day long, we would push carts in for quarters. That's how we made our summer money.
The luggage carts?
The luggage carts. We would push them in for quarters, and we would have pockets of change. And like the first time I did it, I came home and my pockets were bulging, and I'm like, Mom, we're rich. And she's like, no, we're not.
You got $3. Calm down.
Oh, no, I was a hustler. Okay. I made at least 15. But we did everything we could to make ends meet, especially with a family of 5 initially and then 7. There was nothing wasted in our household.
I can't imagine.
So
growing up, did you embrace the California lifestyle, or were your parents kind of restrictive?
Very, very restrictive in that they're very devout Muslims, and they're Shia. So it's even, I think, stricter than Sunni Muslims, right? But I didn't have my first haircut like by a beautician until I was in the 11th grade. I didn't wear makeup when I was in high school because first of all, we couldn't afford it. Second of all, they wouldn't allow it. Even if we could afford it, they wouldn't allow it. So just stuff like that, like girls nowadays, heck, there's guys getting their eyebrows, plucked and tapered and shaped. I have wedding pictures of Robert and I, and he still laughs at him because he's like, babe, your eyebrows are bigger than mine. I'm like, shut up, dude. So just stuff like that. It's very different. Did
you find that you pushed back against the strictness?
No.
Or
no,
kind of went?
So I didn't date. I didn't go to sleepovers. I didn't go out to the mall with friends, nothing like that. It was literally get up, get ready for school, go to school, and then go to cross country, go to track, go to volleyball, go whatever sport I was doing at the time, sometimes 2 sports, and then go back home. Because now it was time for homework. It was time to take care of the kids. It was time to help mom with whatever she needed. It was just a little bit of everything. So there wasn't a lot of time for me to realize I was missing anything. So no, I didn't push back a lot. The pushback came in at the end of our junior year. My dad wanted to get us away from the troubling area of Inglewood. So he moved us to Victorville, California, which was 3 hours away from LA.
Completely different culture.
High desert.
Yeah.
And I went to Victor Valley High School my senior year. And everyone was like, oh my God, you're from LA? It was like, yes, I am. So it was another culture shock, In
your senior year.
In my senior year. So like the 10th year reunion, I'm not going. 20 year, I'm not going. I don't care. I literally have like 3 friends from my senior year of high school. Everybody else that I'm friends with is still from before that time frame. So.
Now you mentioned getting involved in sports, cross country, volleyball. Were your parents accepting of you playing sports?
They were, but I didn't really give them a choice. I told them I needed the outlet. The whole time I was going through school, it was always college. My brother, my sister, myself, all of us, cousins, everybody was like, college. You got to go to college. So I did a lot of the academics. I did the advanced placement classes. I did the sports to make a better entrance into college, to get better grades, to get a scholarship, and ultimately get into college. Well, I didn't realize my parents didn't want their little helper going away that far. My senior year in high school, I had a partial scholarship, and they turned it down for me without even talking to me.
And what college was that?
University of Hawaii for that one.
So that would have taken you quite away from.
Oh yeah, and they're like, nope.
So they wanted you to go to college, but more importantly, they wanted you to stay at home or close to home.
Yes. They wanted me to go to a junior college, but never once did they say that, until they turned down my scholarship. I found out about it from my cross country coach. She's like, hey girl, what the hell did you turn it down? I'm like, turn what down?
Yeah.
I don't even know what you're talking about, and sure enough, my parents had turned it down. And when I confronted my parents about it, I was very upset because I saw that as my way out of the situation in the high desert. I did not like living in the high desert whatsoever, and I didn't want to live there forever. And my parents are like, oh, you don't have to live here forever. Which cousin do you want to marry? Wait, what?
That's my option?
That's my only option? Are you kidding me?
Can I get door number 3?
Why a cousin? Don't you have somebody else? And even if they had offered somebody else, it's not like, it's like, come on, are you kidding me? First of all, I grew up on John Wayne movies, it's like, oh, hell no, we're not playing that, And then secondly, especially with everything we had been through, all the sacrifices I saw my parents making, especially my mom, I didn't want that life for me. I didn't want that life for any children I might have. And it was like, oh, no, I have to find a way out. I have to find a way better, something to improve our lives. And it wasn't just my life, it was our lives. And my parents wanted nothing to do with that.
Only for you as the daughter or also for your brothers?
No, only for myself as the daughter and my sister, my younger sister, But once I looked around the high desert, there's not a lot of job opportunities that give you a career. So it was like, okay, what am I going to do? I've only had one part-time job as a cashier at a grocery store. And I was like, okay, I have my car. And my dad's like, no, that's my car. That's not your car. That's mine. And I was like, but I pay everything for it. And he's like, so it's my car. It's in my name. And it was like, oh, got it. Noted.
Were your parents, compared to your other aunts and uncles, did they all kind of adhere to that very strict lifestyle? Or did any of the other aunts and uncles kind of go, wait a minute, we're living here in the United States. Let's back off a little bit?
They all adhered, not necessarily adhered to the same lifestyle, because most of them had boys. So boys' lives are a lot different in how they're raised, the differences, the stuff that they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do compared to girls. Even to this day. To this day, I know of people who arrange marriages for their 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old daughters. Wait, what?
That's their belief, and that's their belief system.
That they think it's perfectly fine for them to be able to do that. And you know what? In their belief, that's perfectly fine. In mine, it is not. You know, I believe in freedom of choice. I believe in fighting for freedom of choice.
Where do you think that aspect of you came from?
The belief in,
like that pushback of, no, I'm going to make my own decisions.
You know, honestly, before that time, I really hadn't done any pushback to them, you know. Whatever I was expected to do, I did. It was like no big deal. It was part of life. It was an expectation. You know, I knew growing up I was going to take care of my parents.
It was just what was expected.
It's expected. So you're raised in that mentality. So you grow up thinking that. The pushback for me personally was them not discussing it with me, them not giving me a choice, and them making the choice for me, and then just expecting me to live with it because I didn't have any options. Oh, hell no.
See, that's
I'm going to find my own options.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So to be raised in that culture, in that system, and you were adhering to it, doing as you were expected, loosely pushing back by at least expecting them to allow you to play sports. Mm-hmm. But everything else you were in line with.
Yes.
To then see it from a sense of, wait a minute, you took the opportunity away from me by rejecting this scholarship. That seems like a big leap to all of a sudden go from that, where I would almost imagine somebody might kind of go, all right, I don't have a choice, to go the opposite extreme and go, no, time out.
So when my parents did that, it literally slapped me in the face that if I continue not making my own choices, I'm going to be stuck. I'm going to be stuck in this type of situation for the rest of my life. I refused. I will not ever put up with that. If anything happens, whatever happens in life, we can deal with it. All you have to do is take it one step at a time. Come up with a plan, take it a step at a time, and then continue down that path no matter how hard it gets. And when I chose Marine Corps boot camp out of all the services,
because you didn't want to be told what to do. I'll show you, Mom and Dad. You're not going to tell me what to do.
I literally went from the frying pan and into the fire.
This 6-foot-tall Gutty's going to tell me what to do all day long, though.
Well, it made me realize if I stay where I'm at, I'm going to end up in an arranged marriage with someone I don't know, someone I don't like, possibly someone I cannot tolerate, and I will have to stay married to them until one of us dies. And to my parents, that was okay. And
what's wrong with that? Sounds wonderful.
That's what we did. And I was like,
hate to break it to you, that's marriage.
But I literally couldn't face it at 17 years old, having to make that decision or being slapped in the face and like literally feeling like waking up, like you're waking up, looking around like, oh my God, if I don't do anything to change this, this is where I'm going to be 20, 40, 60 years from now. It's like, oh, hell no. I have to do a change and something drastic because I didn't have any money to fall back on. I didn't have any scholarship to fall back on now. I didn't even have a car. So it was like, okay.
Can I get a ride to the recruit depot?
I walked to the recruiter's office after one of my high school cross-country meets. I walked right to the recruiter's office. I went to the Army, and I'm like, hey, I had my ASVAB scores, and I'm like, this is who I am, 17, blah, blah, getting ready to graduate this year. What can you do?
How had you already taken the ASVAB?
As a senior in high school.
They just offered it?
They always did. Yep. They always did. So I had my ASVAB scores. It was like, okay, here we go. You know? So it was like, let's go.
What didn't the Army offer you that?
Well,
made you choose?
the Army said, hey, we can give you this, this, and this, you know? Navy was like, this, and this. You know, we'll give you a bonus, you know? And couldn't find the Air Force recruiter. He was out to lunch all day long, all week, 2 weeks or whatever. So then I walked by the Marine office and I had seen the John Wayne movies with the Marines and everything. The Marines hymn, you love that, right? But I wasn't going to join the Marines. It was like, oh, heck no. But I wanted to see what they had to offer, you know? So I walked in and I'm all proud of myself. Here's my ASVAB scores, blah, blah, blah. Army said this, Navy said this. What about you guys? And the recruiter literally looked me right in the eye and he goes, we don't give you anything. You earn it. And I was like,
give you the name that says Marines.
No, you earn the name.
But what I'm saying is
yes.
What more do you need?
Yes. You're not going to get a bonus. You're not going to get a job guarantee. You're not going to, literally, it was like, damn. But as soon as he said, you're going to earn it, it was like, that was my avenue. I knew that was my avenue, you know? So it was like, okay, let's do it. And then he had to get my parents' signature. My mom showed up to the table to sign the papers.
You go in. I'm going to stay out here out the car.
She showed up with a meat cleaver. She was cutting up meat in the kitchen. She came with it to the table. And my recruiter looks at me and he goes, do I got to be I said, oh, I got you, dude. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of mom. But it was like, they were both very, very upset with me. They were both very disappointed. All my uncles, aunts, cousins, everybody tried talking me out of it, except my grandfather on my mom's side. He had been one of the guys, I would swear to God, if he had been younger, he would have been part of the Mujahideen, you know? And he's like, Halima, just do you. Don't worry about everybody else. Everything else will fall into place or it won't. He's like, just take care of you. This life, you being a devoted wife in some arranged marriage, isn't for you. He's like, we all know that. That's cool that your
grandfather saw that in you, though.
He's the only one. He's the only one. If it hadn't been for his support, I might have joined the Army. I don't know, because it was easier. No. But
the Army recruiter probably would have turned and ran from your mom.
She's a fierce little woman, okay? But it really opened up everything. For me to go from a very close-knit family, extended family, getting together constantly, to nothing was eye-opening. For me to have my parents make specific major life decisions without discussing them with me was eye-opening. When I joined the delayed entry program for the Marine Corps and then actually went into boot camp was eye-opening. So it was a series of revelations for me personally to help me grow is how I saw it. You know, oh, my parents aren't talking to me right now. Oh, that's all right. I'll bring them around later, you know. But even after joining the Marine Corps, becoming a Marine, meeting Robert at one of the schools they send us to, right? One of our first dates, I literally took him out on a 12-mile run. Poor guy. He says to this day, that's the most he's ever ran. You know, second date, we went to the auto hobby shop. But when we decided to get married, I invited my parents to the wedding. To this day, my mom's like, oh, no, you never invited us. You know, so one day.
I did, Mom.
Yeah, sure I didn't. Mm-hmm. One day, I literally show up with my husband and my son, knock on their door. They open the door.
Talking to me?
I walked right on in, gave my son to my dad. Here you go, Dad. Walked right on in, said hi to my mom like nothing had happened, and we just picked up. Picked up like I had never left. And now, out of her 5 kids, my husband, the 6th one, is her favorite.
He does strike an imposing figure.
Yes, all 6'3" inches of him. You know, but it was very, it's been an adventure. Our life has definitely been an adventure.
So keeping on track with you, what year did you go into boot camp? What year did you join the Marine Corps?
1991.
During that initial transition, did you ever have a point where you're like, oh, crap, I made the wrong decision?
So in boot camp, going through the different phases and everything. We have one area that's called a confidence course. And they have one of these things that are called Stairway to Heaven. And I had gone over the top of that, come down on a portion of it, and then fallen off. And I literally fell onto my back and lost my breath. And it was like, oh, damn, what the heck do I think I'm doing here? You know, it was a make or break decision moment, because I could have easily pretended I was hurt and not continued with training and gotten out, eventually. And I'm like, no, this is nothing. Oh, well, you just work through it, you know? So yes, most definitely. Boot camp was eye-opening. Going in,
were you thinking career from the onset?
No. I was going to do my 4 years, get them to pay for my education, earn my education, save some money along the way, and then go do my college. And then once I found out that the Marine Corps had officer programs that they would send you to, it was like, oh, damn, I don't even have to get out. I could just do this. Okay, that might be an avenue that I actually do. So it wasn't, this is going to be a career for the rest of my life. It was get the education, get the benefits, get some training in some field that I could use afterwards.
And then get out.
And
that get out ended up being...
Get a good paying job,
And that get out ended up keeping you in there for how many years?
22 years. 22 years. It was like, oh my God. But we'd always told each other we're going to continue doing it until we're no longer having fun, So it's like, okay, no big deal.
Because you and Rob met while you were both
while we were both young Marines, corporals in the Marine Corps, yes. And then we did the rest of our tours taking each other into account, taking our family into account. Like when I got stationed for recruiting duty, I could have been stationed anywhere in the United States. I interviewed for San Diego. Heck, I didn't even know you could do that. My roommate, after the school was over that night, we're doing downtime, so I'm getting my uniform ready for the next day. She's putting hers on, and I'm like, where are you going? It's like 5 p.m., She's like, oh, no, I have an interview with the Sergeant Major of San Diego. I'm like, for what? And she's like, for a spot, for him to pick me? And I'm like, wait for me. I want to go too. She goes, you don't have an appointment. And I was like, but I put on my uniform like in 2 minutes. I went into my car. I followed her. I didn't even know where the recruiting station was, the main headquarters. I didn't know where it was at. I followed her. And then I was putting my hair up as I'm sitting at red lights.
How many years into it are you at this point?
At that point, I was in for 8. So there's a lot of, just like in life, there's a lot of little areas. If you don't know to go down that path, you're not going to go down that path, But
sometimes
everything happens.
It's just putting that first foot forward and say, hey, gotta give it a shot.
I got San Diego. My roommate did not.
See?
But I literally waited until after almost 9 p.m. I stayed while everybody else had interviews with that Sergeant Major. And I wasn't leaving until I had 2 minutes with him. I'm like, Sergeant Major, just give me 2 minutes. If you don't like what I'm saying, kick me out. I'll leave. You won't ever have to see me again. And then I told him, I was like, right now I'm a single parent with 2 kids, 2 young kids, because our daughter had just been born less than, 2003. So she was, I think she was maybe 6 at the time. My son was 9. No, she was 2 at the time because it was 99. And I was like, just give me 2 minutes. My husband is a Force Reconnaissance Marine. He's deployed right now, and I'm at home with 2 kids. And I will be the best recruiter. I'll be one of the most honest people you're ever going to meet. I will not lie to any kids. I will get all of my contracts, and I'll make mission for you. Give me a chance. And then 2 minutes turned into 45 minutes later, and I got the spot. So I was like, thank God.
You don't strike me as somebody who, when you put your mind to it, you're not going to get it.
Thank you. Well, I just had a friend of mine. He's a retired Marine, and we work in the same company now. Everyone calls him Gunny because that was the rank that he retired out of. And I just saw him on Wednesday, and he's like, "You're like one of those bulldogs. You never give up." He goes, "I love it."
But there's something to be said about that in people. It's all how you deliver that. You can be, I'll loosely say, aggressive in that you know what you want and you're gonna get there and not stop, but you don't have to be an asshole on the way. That I think is the big issue, or the big aspect of it.
Well, for me, now that I knew, like for recruiting duty, right? Now that I knew you could interview with the Sergeant Major, if San Diego didn't accept me, I would have gone to LA. If LA hadn't accepted, I would have gone to Orange. If Orange, on and on, I don't care. But I wanted to be able to stay as close to home as possible, so we would move the kids less. My roommate got Des Moines, Iowa.
Oh, Jesus.
So we could have literally gone anywhere. And instead, we try to keep the family as close together and as little movement as possible. We made some of our career decisions like that, and that impacted me negatively sometimes. Oh, well, you sacrifice for the family.
And on the flip side, though, I remember when I was interviewing, Robbie mentioned that one of the reasons that was his final nail in the coffin to get out was they wanted him to deploy unaccompanied.
Yes.
And for that same thing, wait a minute, You're taking me away from my family.
Yep. And it was our daughter's senior year. Because I told him, I was like, I'm not moving her. I was moved during my senior year. I am not moving her. I will come visit you, or you can come visit home, but we're not moving her. So he's like, okay, I'm done. That was it. So he could have stayed in a lot longer. He could have picked up the next rank. The highest rank for him would have been Master Guns. And instead, he chose to retire as a Mass Sergeant.
So you got out what year?
2013.
2013.
Yes.
And did you have a plan for yourself after that?
Yes. I had gotten my private investigator's license. And so that's what I was going to do.
Just real quick. So you got your bachelor's degree while you were in active duty, or did you get your bachelor's afterwards?
Afterwards.
And your MBA?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I've got those two afterwards.
Even though you were in for 22 years, it took you to get out to go back to college?
If I had gone to college, what would have happened with my kids?
Oh, okay.
And especially with all the different deployments that my husband was doing or that we were doing together. I didn't feel like there was enough time left over for me to spend getting an education or furthering my education, when instead I could be spending it with the kids. So like all of their events, I was the mom that was always there.
Even when they didn't want you to?
Every chance I got.
Were you the loudest mom?
Yes. And my daughter was in water polo, her high school. And they used to have like a father-daughter water polo, match. I joined. I didn't care. I was helping the dads. I was helping the girls. I didn't care, at one point, one of the matches, my son, my husband, myself, and my daughter were all in the pool trying to drown each other, We didn't care who was winning, who was losing. We were trying to drown each other.
Like, those four aren't playing water polo anymore. We're just going to leave them alone.
So yeah, I was one of those parents that tried to be around no matter what.
So you got out intending to be a PI?
Yes, I did. I became a PI. I did that for quite a while. A couple of years. I couldn't handle it anymore.
But where did wanting to be a PI come from?
Well, because I was doing investigations in the Marine Corps. Yeah, so I was handling different investigation cases and everything. So I was doing that, and I was like, oh, I love this stuff, especially like getting into the nitty gritty of stuff. So it was like, oh, I can enjoy this. Well, I started doing workers' comp. That was the end of my career.
That sounds so exciting.
I'm beyond frustrated with people. I love dogs. People, not so much.
Are you saying that there's people that try to take advantage of the system?
No, not at all. I'm just saying I couldn't do my job anymore because I was afraid I was going to choke some people out. And all 5 feet of me was going to try to choke them out no matter what size they were. I didn't give a damn. It was like, wait, you're telling me this is the third time you're putting in for workers' comp on this one area. because you want to go to vacation somewhere. Yep. And it's easier.
Well, and from a business perspective, playing a little bit of a devil's advocate, sometimes for the insurance companies or the companies, it's easier. Let's just pay and move on, because at the end of the line,
the bottom dollar, it is easier. It's less.
It becomes a number on a spreadsheet.
Yes. Yes. And they pay so much less when they settle with someone rather than taking them to court and winning. They pay so much less by settling. So yes, I understand. I get it. I just couldn't take it personally anymore. I was getting beyond frustrated, like to the point where my blood pressure was like, I was like, oh, I'm not going on blood pressure medication. I don't need to do that. So then started doing something else, right? And my husband had already started Warfighter Made. So he was already doing that. I was already volunteering there. Any other time I wasn't working, I was volunteering. But I can't work at Warfighter Made full time because he's working there. We want to keep our marriage going, and you can't have two alphas at the helm.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yes.
Why are you still here? Aren't you going to leave yet?
Go on another trip, babe. But that's the thing, though. So I knew I had to find something else, and actually the job that I have now as a sales rep, I found while I was volunteering for Warfighter Made at one of our trips to Vegas. I'm just selling Warfighter Made, to anybody that's walking by. Hi, how are you? Have you heard of Warfighter Made? Come on down. Let me tell you, And I met the CEO of the company, and he's like, oh, tell me more, tell me more. Oh, we're going to make sure you're hired by the end of the night. Thanks, buddy. I don't know you. I don't care.
I'll take the job.
So that's how I ended up with my job,
What did you go and get your bachelor's degree in?
Criminal justice.
Okay.
Because I was going to use my PI license, criminal justice, and get into another job where I could possibly retire from it. And once I became a sales rep, things changed again. It's like, do I take the road on the right or do I take the road on the left? I decided to take the road on the left.
But you've also gone back and gotten your MBA.
I have.
Was that to enhance your current job or just purely a desire for education?
A desire for education, but I got my MBA so I could help with Warfighter Made.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know, help guide them a different way, something. We'll see. And
you have thoughts of going back and even getting a doctorate degree.
That's only to make sure that I win arguments with my husband. Because he can't argue with Dr. Blanton.
I'm going to spend a lot of money just so I could end the argument with, and the doctor said so.
Exactly. No. He swears that's the only reason I'm going to go back. But I was thinking maybe if I could get, a degree that would be able to help more veterans than what we're helping now with Warfighter Made. Maybe help slow down the veteran suicide rate. Maybe better help understand veteran PTSD, or traumatic brain injury, something where it would be an asset for Warfighter Made. It would be an asset for us to be able to help people, more than we are now. That might be the next step. We'll see.
And for those who didn't listen to episode 31, I'm plugging it to go back and listen to Rob and his story because he started Warfighter Made.
Yes.
But it's a nonprofit organization giving back to the veteran community through adrenaline therapy.
Yes.
Basically, they're putting vets in race type cars and running them across the desert at 100 miles an hour.
Or plus, yes.
But as Rob said, when you're flying across the desert at 100 miles an hour, all you're thinking about is that moment right there.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And to see, for me, one of the most beautiful sights is most of our veterans that come back injured, catastrophically injured especially, if they're a triple amputee, they're very limited on what they used to be able to do and what they can do now, comparatively. But once they're in one of our adapted razors, or an adapted razor that we're getting ready to give to them for that at no cost to them, that they can then turn around and drive their family around in, go blasting all over the desert on their own. It's a beautiful sight to see that smile on that veteran or that family's face when they're coming back from that run. It's fantastic.
No, what you guys are doing is amazing, and it's a great organization. And like you said, you know, you're giving people back freedom that had a lot of freedom taken from them.
Yeah.
So this is bringing us back to what I really kind of wanted to talk to you about. And I wanted to really kind of get your perspective from the spouse and what you were seeing in Rob as it was building. Because one of the things that stuck out with me when I talked to him was that one final night waking up from one of those dreams and you putting your hand on his shoulder and saying, I've got you. And him finally realizing that you're my partner in this, meaning you. Mm-hmm. But I really wanted to kind of give you the opportunity to talk about, especially if there is a spouse listening, mm-hmm. what to look for, what they might be seeing, what they could do.
The hard part, it's different for everyone. There's not one thing I could pinpoint and say, this is what I saw that led to that moment. We had just come back from Okinawa, Japan. So we had been gone from the country for over 3 years. And we had just come back with our kids, our dogs, our household, our storage, everything. We bought our house in Temecula. And then I went to 29 Palms for training.
Sorry.
I know, right? I went to 29 Palms for training for over a month. I came back home for 2 weeks, and then I was gone to Afghanistan for 7 months. So Robert, like literally for the first time ever, he was left with the kids completely. The kids, the dogs, moving, unpacking. He set up our whole household, and it's fantastic.
Did you pick the colors too?
Yes. It was the easiest move I've ever done.
You're like, can we move again?
During that 2-week vacation in August, I bought Christmas presents for everybody. And then I hid them amongst all the boxes. So yeah, I mean, you think outside the box, right? But when I came back from that 7-month deployment, it literally felt like a different household. First off, it was a new house for me. I'd only lived there for 2 weeks. So it was like, okay. But when I came back, our family wasn't going on walks with the dogs every night. They weren't discussing what had happened during the daytime. They weren't having dinner together. They weren't, nothing. My son was in his room. My daughter was in her room. My husband was in his room. Literally, that's how it felt. I came home one day.
And that wasn't that way when you left.
No, I don't allow that. I want to know how your day went. Tell me about it.
Even if I don't want to talk about it.
So I'm very inclusive, but I think that tends to bring the family together. And like dinners, every night we're going to have dinner. I don't care what time it is. I don't care what time we all can make it together. But we're all going to have dinner together, even if it's me getting Taco Bell or whatever restaurant. I love getting outside food because I hate cooking. Food. I hate cooking, okay? I'm a great cook. I can burn anything you want, all right? But
noted. So
after this, I'll show you a video, okay? I had some sugar water on the stove.
I'm really hungry right now. I probably don't want to see it.
No. Side note, okay? I had some sugar water on the stove for the hummingbirds, okay? Because I love hummingbirds, and I forgot it.
You're not supposed to draw the hummingbirds to the stove.
No. I forgot it on the stove, and then I went to my office and started working until the fire alarms went off. So anyway, so I don't cook a lot now, okay? Thank God my kids are grown and one's out of the house, but it's. When I came back, it was literally everyone living their own lives. And I had no idea who this family was. It was like, wait, well, what do you mean we're not going to have dinner together? Get over here. And they're like, well, it's just fast food. I can just take it to my room. No, it's not. And then like the three of them like spoke their own language. Like they would start talking movie quotes. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And they're just cackling. They're laughing their heads off at each other sometimes. And the more bewildered I became, the more they laughed. I'm like, whatever. As long as it brings them together, I don't care. But they were spending so much time on their phones, so much time on their tablet or iPad, so much time on their computer, so much time playing video games, so much time doing solitary stuff. They weren't communicating at all, you know? And the hard part for me was trying to bring them all together after being gone for so long. So initially, I didn't even realize there was an issue with Robert. I mean, he would have outbursts where he would get mad or road rage, but we all have that, right? California
It's
driving.
Southern California. If you don't get road rage driving in Southern California.
Exactly. So I didn't think anything of it.
I still think back, one of my best friends is from South Carolina, and he came out for my wedding, and we got married up in Camarillo. So we're making routine trips from Temecula to Camarillo, and we'd get on the road at 10 o'clock at night, and he's like, why are there so many cars on the road? He did. I mean, that was the most mind-boggling thing to him. Is like, you driving this every single. Yep. Yeah, this is Southern California, bro. Yep. It doesn't matter what day of the week or what time of the day.
Yep. There's always going to be someone else around, you know? My daughter moved to Colorado to get away from all the traffic, and she still gets road rage over there. But now it's like a little 2-lane highway.
Because the guy's only doing like 35, just nothing to worry about.
Exactly. So I'm like, you're going to deal with it no matter where you're at. But it was to the point where I didn't initially see an issue. You know, I knew he was having issues. I knew he was having nightmares, night terrors, whatever you want to call it. I knew he was very short-tempered, you know, to where, like, we would get into a discussion about dinner. He'd get mad at me and storm off. And I'm like, dude, I offered to go pick up something. I'm not even cooking anything. So why are you getting mad? You know? But just, it wasn't anything you could put your finger on initially, you know? And then he was having episodes because of his traumatic brain injury. He was having episodes where he would forget stuff. And I'm like, you didn't tell me that. And he goes, yes, I did. Dude, I don't know what ghost you were talking to or who you were talking, but it wasn't me, you know? And he's like, yes, I did. And that would lead to an argument. So it's not one thing I could pinpoint, but everything just kept escalating higher and higher. The tensions kept getting higher and higher. And then one day we were trying to get him to see a doctor at the VA hospital on Camp Pendleton. And he literally got so upset waiting for that doctor. He left. And it was like, wait, dude, what's going on? And so then I started realizing there is an issue. Now we need to pinpoint what the issue is. Now we need to be able to figure it out and then start dealing with it. But I still had no idea that things had gotten so bad that he would even contemplate taking his own life. That was heartbreaking.
Looking back now with 2020 hindsight, were there any subtle indicators that maybe you saw that you didn't, or maybe you rationalized away early on?
I don't think so. I've thought back to that time frame for years now. Like, what could I have done differently? You know, how could I have impacted a different change, you know? And I don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
From the positive side, though, looking back on it, what would your advice be that you did keep doing that maybe helped? So something as simple as, no, you guys aren't going to go hide back in your bedrooms. Yeah. I'm going to be that linchpin that's going to bring everybody together. I don't care what we talk about. Let's talk about the dots on a domino, tile.
Well, one of the things that we did was no phones on the dinner table. So literally the kids were trying to hide the phone under the table, under their leg, under what? It was like, that's not going to work for me. Put them away. That was a positive because it actually forced us to start interacting together and actually learn to like each other again. That was one. Going on walks, nightly walks, whether they wanted to or not. Let's go. We're walking the dogs. I was so thankful we had dogs. Not just because my parents don't like dogs, so they don't come often all the time, you know. But
babe, we're always having dogs because it keeps mom and dad away.
No, mom and dad comes over and we have to put the dogs away, you know?
Okay.
So it's okay. But I like to joke with them, you know? And like my mom will literally call me a little devil because I literally forge my own path. I have girl cousins who have followed my path or who threaten their parents by following my path to get what they think that they want to do. You know, I have had total strangers that were Afghan ladies that have, you know, emailed or Facebook messaged, oh, thank you so much. You're an inspiration, blah, you know, and it's nice, but I've literally forged my own path and not anything that's rocket science. I think that the mom and dad figure keep the family together. You need that balance. And for Robert and I, that balance, we need each other, you know, and for me to realize, holy cow, he honestly thinks that we are going to be better off if he's not around. That was another, like I had when I was 17, another revelation, another slap right on the forehead. Hey, wake up. When he actually said, you know, you would be better off without me. And it was like, no, we wouldn't. You know, I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes life would be much easier without his input. Okay. But I love having him around.
He's going to come back in the door eventually.
Exactly. But he actually, in his mindset, he had already decided that our lives would be better off without him in it, that he would be taking care of us by getting rid of himself.
Well, and I think that's one of the, I'll loosely call it the saddest things, because you hear this story frequently. Yeah. People who get to that point in their life and actually think, if I'm gone, everybody else will be better. Yes. And it's sad to think that somebody got that sad to completely devalue themselves.
It got to the point where he was arguing, not just with myself, you know, over anything and everything, but he was having arguments with our son. He was having arguments with our daughter over, like, literally you would ask them, hey, how was your day? Oh my God, I hate my life, you know. Wait, what? I just asked how your day went, you know? It's like, dude, come on, chill. No, but for him to feel that we would be better off without his negative influence. He wasn't finding a lot of positives in life. Driving to and from work, he was getting road rage incidents. At work,
he talks about
he was getting incidents, you know? So it's just where he had a much shorter fuse. And the shorter his fuse got, the shorter mine got, you know? And especially to come from Afghanistan, grow up the way I did, break away from the family, totally be on my own, and then to choose to link my life with Robert's. But for him, you know, for him to tell me that he was going to be, it didn't work for me.
And the double-edged sword is, you are somebody who's obviously very strong-willed, very in-your-face-ish. And I don't mean that in any negative way at all. I think it's very commendable. But I could see how it would be, that mentality could say, hey, you want to act that way? Peace out, brother. I'm gone. See ya.
Yes.
Deal with your stuff on your own. Yeah. As opposed to, no, I'm going to stay here and not only am I not going to back down, I'm going to get in your face and say, we're going to deal with this as a team.
Well, I literally grabbed onto Robert and I told him, you aren't here technically because I need you here. I've more than proven I'm fine on my own. Okay. But I want you here. I want you as part of our lives. And that want is a need. So I might not express it the way he understands it, because I swear sometimes he speaks Mars and I speak Venus, okay? But it's it's so hard sometimes. We're saying the exact same thing in two different ways and neither one's understanding the other. And for me to be able to get that across to him, to make him understand, I want you here. That want is a need for me. I need you in my life because you make it better. You improve it. But for him to feel that and then to understand that and then to accept that, that was a transition.
This is probably going to come off as a very rhetorical question, but having experienced it and now seeing him step away from the military, and obviously, I mean, to rise to the level that he did, achieve what he achieved, but yet to have to say, hey, you know what, I've been there, I've done that, I got the T-shirt, it's time for me to walk away. How much better is he today in your eyes now that he's out?
I don't know if he's necessarily better off. He misses the military a lot more than I do. For me, it was an easier transition because when most people meet me, they don't expect me to be a retired Marine. They have no idea. Half the time, they have no idea what I've been through, what I've done, or what I've accomplished. They think I'm his wife. I'm the little wifey from whatever, right? But it's for him to learn to accept that was the transition.
I guess what I was getting at is for other spouses out there, it's going to have to come to a point where you're going to have to be that support system and support that transition out, because a lot of guys, women probably also, that becomes their identity. Mm-hmm. And to get to a point where you can willingly give up that identity has got to be difficult.
It's very difficult. It's a lot of people can't. A lot of people to this day cannot. A lot of people still consider some of the military bases their home. They've been out over 20 years, 30 years, and they still, it's such a part of them, a part of their heart that they're never going to be able to lose. But the transition from military to civilian, you know how you make it through? Take it one day at a time. And don't treat your husband like a husband. Treat him like your boyfriend. Treat him, start a new chapter. Start something else. Like when the kids move out of the household. Now you're empty nesting, right? There's some people that go through lots of issues with empty nesting. We had a celebration. It was like, oh, woohoo, now we got an exercise room. Not necessarily that we use, but, whatever.
Nothing personal, kids, but we're really happy that you're leaving. What's this party for? Because they're going.
But it's you have to put a positive spin on it. Because if you don't, as the supporting spouse, what do you think the military guy's going to do? He's already going through, or she's already going through a hard enough time leaving that, especially out of all the services, I think the Marine Corps is the tightest. We had friends of ours that we served with back in the 90s. They got out.
Try calling a Marine who's out a former Marine.
Oh, yeah, that's not a good thing.
It's and there's nothing, to a degree, there's honor and integrity in having that in your lineage.
Yeah.
But if you know how to balance it, carry it as a badge of honor, but don't make it be your only badge.
And that's the thing. Do not make it your only badge. And once Robert was able to find a niche with Warfighter Made, and still, he has friends to this day that we all get together, that we've known, God, since the 90s, but they got out of the Marine Corps back then. We still see them. It's literally a brotherhood that we're not going to be able to get rid of. But the problem is when they leave the military, that brotherhood scatters. And sometimes those guys aren't able to touch base with those guys again, or they're whoever they want to, right? So they feel very alone. And the civilian sector, the jobs, are a lot different than military.
No.
A lot different than the Marine Corps way of life. So that's another change. some guys getting out of the military can't find civilian jobs. So that's a hardship. And on already with the problems that they have, that leads to more stressors. Literally, it's opening up a new chapter.
Well, and that's where I really hope that this podcast has an impact, if for nothing more than when you're getting close to that transition, you got to start making those connections outside. Don't just get outside the wire and then think that you can address it. Start making those connections today for when you make that transition.
Or better yet, do something like Robert did. Start a business where you can stay connected, where you can keep those connections, make them stronger, where you can invite others to come into that connection. And who knows, you might be able to help the next guy, on and on. It's a step, but you have to be willing to take that step.
Didn't Robert start putting the plans in place while he was still active?
He did.
For Warfighter?
He did.
So again, it's planning and preparation.
Yep.
There's nothing you do in the military without planning and preparation. Why would you think transitioning out to civilian life shouldn't be done the same way?
That's it exactly. But so many people, they don't think about it, or they saved quite a bit of money. Now they're going to live off that money until, and then what?
Going to run out quick.
And then what? It's like, come on, not everyone has supportive parents, supportive spouses, supportive whatever, even if they're completely on their own. I am literally living proof you can do anything you set your mind to.
I purposely left this out because I knew I wanted to cycle back to it. So one question that I have, when you graduated boot camp, any of your family come?
No.
Not even your grandfather?
No. No one came. So back then, female Marines were sent to Parris Island, South Carolina, and the majority of my relatives all lived in California. So none of them came out for my graduation. And when I came home for my 10 days leave, I stayed with my best friend and her parents. I didn't go back to my parents' house. I was afraid they're going to try to lock me up again. That's what they tried to do before I left for boot camp. They literally locked me in my room. I snuck out the window. It's like, come on, I'm going to figure this out.
On the first floor. It's not very hard.
It's not very hard at all.
The other thing that I really wanted to talk to you about is, so you alluded to it. While you were active duty, you ended up back in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. Explain what your duty was, and then explain your experience in interacting with the Afghan people.
So one of the things that I did over there, I was part of the female engagement team. And in Iraq, we had the Lioness Program, where we would attach female Marines to infantry units where they could actually search females of whatever town they were in, and the males could search the males. Well, in Afghanistan, they knew we couldn't search the females as male Marines. So some of the insurgents were dressing up as women, or they were holding a family hostage, dressing up as the woman, and once they got through, they would release them or whatever, right? So we had the female engagement team. And so over there, that's one of the things that I was doing. And to be able to go out on a convoy, on even a flight, but to see locals, to know how easily I could have been one of those locals, and then to be able to interact with them. Initially, they had no idea I spoke Farsi, and then to be able to talk to them and then have them talk back and understand, and then possibly inspire the next generation of women there, because in Afghanistan, women are not valued at all. So I didn't care about the male population as much, it was the women and children for me. I mean, literally on some of those we would have some of the church groups around here would send us boxes of crayons, coloring books and pencils, whatever. And that's what we would give out during the convoys. Any stops we made, any small villages we stopped at, that's what we would do. And it was to win the hearts and minds of the local population. But while I was there, if I could talk to one Afghan female and inspire her to think outside the box, to think outside of her situation and maybe be able to do something about it, that was my goal.
Did you get the opportunity to, whether it was overtly told to you or you just felt it, that you had that interaction with women who were like, holy shit, you mean to tell me I can make my own decisions? I can do what I want to do?
I would talk to as many of the Afghans as I could find. From like the chow hall, the mess hall where we would eat, we had local Afghans that were actually working there. And initially, like the first week, I didn't tell anybody I spoke Farsi. I would just listen to the conversations around, right? See what they said, see who they were talking about, right? And then
gathering all the intel.
Once I got the information, then I would put my 2 cents in, right? Once I got a lay of the land, basically. But I would talk to them so they could see, especially over there. I had male Marines working, for me, with me. And some of these guys were bigger than you are, I mean, literally the majority of them were all 6 feet or whatever, 200 pounds. And then you see this little 5-foot female Marine, right? But these guys were my Marines, males, females, it didn't matter, but they were my Marines. So I would go to bat for them. But to get the locals to understand that, yes, she's a female, I would have so many of them flabbergasted, because at one point I had one of the guys ask me, oh, your husband allows you to come here? I was like, which husband? I have multiple, It was like, I couldn't resist.
Do you want to fuck with me? I'll fuck with you.
I couldn't resist. But it was like, literally, are you kidding me? How archaic can you be? Your husband allows you? I was like, yeah, my big reconnaissance husband is at home taking care of the kids. But they had no concept of that. But to get them to realize there's a better life for their women, for their sisters, for their mothers, they don't have to stay there. They can improve their life by making a different choice. So it didn't matter who I was talking to. If I could impart that, even if it was just a grain of knowledge like that, I talked to God and country. I didn't care.
And the one thing I want to allow you to, for the humble brag, at this point, you were a warrant, correct?
Yes.
So do you think, or do you know if they, the male counterparts or even the female, acknowledged your rank? So not only were you a female, but you were a female of rank in this operation.
Mm-hmm. There was quite a few times where they would have to acknowledge the rank, because they're like, well, we want to talk to who's in charge. Here I am. Hi, how are you guys?
Let me give you even worse news.
Hi guys. And then for them to find out that I actually spoke Farsi, and then for them to realize, oh, she not only speaks it, she's from Afghanistan. That was, oh my God, there were so many times.
You made some heads explode, I'm sure.
Yes.
No pun intended.
Yes, no pun intended. There was quite a few times where literally you could
just
see
paper locked
the confusion on their faces. And then they would turn to each other like, explain this to me. Guess what? Wake up, buddy. Literally, we're no longer. Never mind.
It would definitely be something that if I could be a fly on the wall, I'd love to have seen some of those interactions. I think it would have just been just cool to see.
To me, even this was back in 2010. For me to be able to interact with them, and then for them to realize, first of all, it's a female. Second of all, it's a small little female. Third of all, she's the one in charge of these guys. And then fourth of all, she's Afghan? Oh, holy cow. I swear to God, some of those guys, I don't think they still haven't recovered yet. Okay.
Well, and you have to say to yourself, there had to be some of the women standing in the background looking at this going the exact same thing. Well, wait a minute. She's a woman. She's telling all of those men what to do. She's in charge of all those. Honey, I don't think I want to keep listening to you. I mean, they may not have acted on it, but you know they at least thought it.
Even if I impacted one person, I think that's time well spent away from my family. You know, and God knows my family suffered during that time frame. But even if it's one grain that was put in as a change, I'm hoping it impacted. Because for them to realize you can make different choices. You just have to be willing to put the work for it. You know, I mean, if I hadn't made the choice to become a Marine and work hard, earn it, damn it, right? I don't know where my life would be. I might be in an arranged marriage with 5 kids now instead of, happily married to Robert with our 2 kids. So it's amazing to me. You take that left turn or that right turn on that road and where it takes you, but it's never too late. Relationships, families, it's never too late, but you have to be willing to put the work into it in order to take that next step forward. So for guys suffering with PTSD, for spouses having to deal with them suffering through, so they're suffering also, there's always something you can do. There's always something you can take, another approach. You just got to find it. You just got to keep looking for it and not give up.
If somebody wants to reach out to you just to talk about their experiences as maybe a spouse, can they reach out to you?
Most definitely.
What's the best way to get a hold of you?
My email is halimablanton@gmail.com. So that's spelled HALIM as in Mary A, and then Blanton @gmail. Please reach out. Anything we can do to help each other, it's worth it in the long run, especially if it means saving one of our veterans' lives. These are our guys. These are our brothers, our husbands, our fathers. So let's save them.
It was a pleasure to sit and talk with you.
Thank you. You too,
I
Paul.
enjoyed it.
I hope so.
I appreciate you watching. But before you go, if you like the video, please hit that subscribe button. Also, any comments are appreciated. Thank you.